Hey everybody, and welcome to the Circles and Squares News Report for Monday, August 29th, 2022. I'm James, and that's Katie, and that makes this part of the Circles and Squares podcast experience, as always. And before we say anything else, we have a special announcement from the one and only Kate. So take it away, Kate. What do you have to tell everyone today?
That's right. I'll give everyone a second. Go get a piece of cake or, like a cookie or some kind of fun treat because we have a very exciting little shout out. I have, it only was 149 hours, but I can officially say now every single boss has been defeated in Elden Ring and I am free. Congratulations to me. I did it.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's as much as I'll say now. I think you can definitely expect some Elden Ring on the next main episode. And then for the rest of the week, I'm gonna be putting my feet up and just patting myself on the back for this one.
I'll pat you on the back too, like for real when I see you, because that's amazing. And it's probably something I know I'm never going to accomplish. So I'm really proud of you. I have a couple quick hitting questions for you about this before we move along. I want
Mhm.
like a rapid answer just off the
Okay.
top of your head. Who's your favorite boss in the game?
Godric, maybe?
Hmm.
Melania, if she didn't have waterfowl, would be a close contender.
Okay. And how many times did you beat that rowboat boss that shows up on the in the
Ah,
little lake?
the Tibia Mariner. Dude, there are a few death loop level bosses in that game.
Yeah.
I think I Tibia Marinered probably like 5 or 6 times. He's in it like a lot at the beginning, and in the second half of the game, you don't see hide or hair of that dude. He just gives up and he just rows home.
Okay, yeah, because where I'm at in the game, I feel like I see
Yeah,
him every time I play. And I'm
yeah.
like, look, there's some cool bosses in this game, but like I'm done with this guy as cool as he is.
There are definitely, like, a few of those, that get repeated, and sometimes in the weirdest places that you least expect them, but yeah, he's at least kind of funny. That one movie he gets where he, like, fucking, like, goes up on his little waterfall and slams
Yeah,
down,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
is always funny.
It is. It is. Well, I don't have anything as cool as that, but I did see the new Dragon Ball Z movie the other night. Last night, actually. It was pretty cool. I had not watched Dragon Ball Z for like years and years. And I was just telling you about this, but like, if you're like me and you're someone that used to watch Dragon Ball Z on TV on like Saturday morning, like we used to, and then you just gave up on it because you got tired of like yelling for 15 episodes and nothing happening, I would recommend seeing this movie because it was actually really cool. And like, I think Dragon Ball Z works really well in a movie format because it has to be condensed into that like 2 hour time slot. You can't waste all the time charging up, you know, like they have to get down to it. And they did. And it was cool. And it even ended without Goku having to come in and save the day. Like other characters got to do something for once. Um,
Ooh, that
so,
is nice. There
so
weren't just
yeah.
12 Gokus.
No, yeah. Exactly.
Nice.
Anyway, we got a lot to talk about on the show today, so let's get right into the news. Of course, we'll start off with PlayStation news, and then we'll be recapping Opening Night Live, which happened last week, and lots of announcements from that showcase. And then, yeah, closing out with some interesting, sweet news about some delicious ice cream. But let's start off with PlayStation, Kate, and we have a couple of sort of negative PlayStation stories to talk about today on the show, unfortunately. So the first one here is that there is a lawsuit in the UK. PlayStation is facing a $5 billion lawsuit for allegedly ripping off customers. And before the show, you and I were trying to kind of sort this one out because there's a little bit of weirdness going on. This is an article from Video Games Chronicle that we're reading. And basically, as we understand it, Sony's taking a 30% cut of all the purchases made on the digital store. And we were confused because this is the same as Steam and Xbox and Apple. Epic only takes 12%. Epic's a good guy, Epic, of course. But I guess the crux of this is that unlike those other systems or platforms, PlayStation is really exclusive in the fact that they're the only ones that you can buy digital codes through for their platform. And so they're saying this is like anti-competitive because you can't have like another option to go and buy their products from if you want digital products, and then they're forced to take that cut. And it just, I don't know, I guess they're making it like too much of a closed, fenced in area for them to sell their
Right.
stuff. But
Right. So the
yeah.
difference between Xbox and Steam is that you can go to third-party places like Humble Bundle or like Green Man Gaming, and you can buy through there and you get a code that then will be like redeemed through the platform versus I guess the argument they're making here is that Sony is does not allow you to purchase from anywhere else. It has to go through exclusively their Sony store as the only option. And so I guess that exacerbates the issue of that 30% cut being a big deal, especially for smaller developers
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
who are not making as much money off of the game purchase.
Yeah, right. And then for me, I'm thinking of this in myself. Like I could go right now, like I have a digital PS5, so my only option to buy anything is through the PlayStation Store. Sure, I could go to Amazon or Walmart or wherever I want and buy like a PlayStation gift card for $20, but that's still the same $20 I'd be spending on the PlayStation Store. And then when I actually spend those dollars, it's all through the same PSN network. And so like I'm not personally upset about that. Like I knew what I was getting into buying the digital PlayStation. Like I would be buying digital anyway. But I do think like looking at this, it does kind of make sense in the fact that like if there's a sale on like Green Man Gaming, like you say, and like, oh look, God of War is on sale over here, like you could kind of shop around, right? But you're locked into that one place. It's fascinating. I wonder if this is going to go through. Like $5 billion is not a small amount of money, even if you're PlayStation. So I wonder if this is going to happen. And I also wonder like why is it only in the UK that they're getting this get brought up? I guess it just happens to be like this is the first place that they're talking about this.
Is like how this snowballs, because like some of the articles have brought up interesting points of like, yeah, this is a shitty part on Sony's deal, but like their store is better than some other stores. Like Nintendo is the main like comparison that we'd seen made, and it was like, well, at least Sony's stuff like goes on sale and they don't have like the most outrageous prices, right? Like a game can come out on the Sony store and it might be on sale like 6 months later. They compare to like a Nintendo game that will be $80 till the day you die, no matter like when it
Yeah,
came out. And
yeah.
so it's like, well, is that, like is that worse? Like how impactful does it have to buy through Sony if the store itself is fine? And like, I think it is just in everyone's best interest if it gets opened up and there are additional like avenues that you can navigate, and like everybody like wants to have a deal. Like it's only in like consumers best interest if you can get like 10% off whatever game you're going to buy. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time it's like, is Sony like so much worse than everyone else? Like I don't know.
I think that's an interesting argument too, because I agree with you. Like as a person that likes to buy games on all the consoles, like I find that Nintendo is the biggest ripoff because you can't wait like a year later and like, oh, I want to play Splatoon now, like I'm gonna get it a year later for 50% off. Like that just doesn't happen. But that's on the consumer end, and this is talking about on the this affects more the developers, I think, on the end of this argument, because it doesn't give the developer an option like, well, if I want to release my game on PlayStation, then I could also sell it through Green Man Gaming and they'll only take 15% from me. And so I'm actually going to make more profits on those sales. Like if you want to develop a game and put it on PlayStation, you have no choice but to go for that 30% cut. I think is maybe the difference. But like I agree, as a consumer, like I find Nintendo to be a bigger ripoff than PlayStation. So I don't know. It's fascinating. Like the pricing of games, I think, is just a fascinating thing to talk about these days when you get into the subscriptions and then like where you're buying your games from, all these different kinds of things. It's evolving in all these different ways with this generation, I think. And this is like a byproduct of them trying to figure out exactly how we're going to transition from like physical to digital, because everything's going digital in the long run, I feel.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right. And it's really difficult to navigate to as someone who's not an industry expert because, like, what they always say is like, well, games are more expensive now because they're more expensive to make. And it's like, well, that's hard to refute, right? Like, it makes sense. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
see, like, the budgets of some of these games, they're massive and, like, the tech they need. And there's just so many resources that go into it. So it's like, okay, that's reasonable. But then you get, some developers that charge way less for games than others. And then it's like, well, is Animal Crossing the same cost as Elden Ring? Like, did those have the same budget? And it's like, well, they're just first party games; they get to be the same price, and like,
Yeah.
just a lot of like nuance that goes into it, and it's a very difficult question to really like come
Yeah.
up with an
And
answer
as you say, we're like on the outside of it, right? We don't actually know
for.
what goes into. I think the whole way games are developed is just getting a little out of hand. Like there's so many games going through development hell, and there's people getting laid off all the time, and then they hire a bunch of people, and it's just, you know, I've heard nothing than from like listening to different industry sources and reading things, that games actually should cost more than they do for us right now if they actually wanted to charge what is like a fair price for the development cost. Like, we're in a sense, like, even though they're like nearly $100 to buy a new game, like that's actually a deal if you were to figure out like how much cost goes into it. Like, I'm sure Elden Ring should be selling for more than $80 a pop if you think about it, in terms of like how much resources went into making it. But I don't know. I just hope things continue to get cheaper for me to buy.
And you know what? Yeah, exactly. We'll just take the biased approach because we don't know any other way. But I will say, on the credit of Green Man Gaming, because we brought it up, I got Elden Ring for $68 on Green Man Gaming before it even came out. So sites like that are definitely like, as long as the developers are still like, that's reasonable for them and they're not just getting shit on because
Yeah.
like Green Man Gaming is selling it instead of, like the main platform, then like for a consumer, that's really fucking nice. And if I could do the same thing for Ragnarok, I'd be very happy.
100%. I don't know. This is gonna be interesting. Like, I wonder 5 years from now, like, our game price is gonna go up. Is everything gonna be on a subscription? Are you gonna have more choices where to buy stuff? Like, we just don't know. And this will be fascinating to follow. But speaking of things being expensive to buy these days, let's get into our second half of the PlayStation sad news. And this one I think is even probably more tragic because, the lawsuit, who knows if that's actually going to come to fruition, if they'll actually end up having to, face the music on that one. But this is very real, and this is very bad for consumers in a lot of places. And I'm sure people listening to this have heard the news over the last few days that the PlayStation 5 is increasing in price in select markets due to the global economic environment, according to inflation, including high inflation rates, is what they say on the PlayStation blog. So the crux of it is basically that there's around, now this is in several different areas. It's in Europe, the UK, Japan, China, Australia, Mexico, and Canada, where the PlayStation 5, both digital and physical, they're going up a little bit different, like different denominations in each of those areas, but it's about $50 more to buy each of the consoles in each place if you average it out. And so, they're saying this is due to like inflation and demand and, manufacturing costs and everything like that. But obviously that sucks for people who haven't been able to buy a PlayStation 5 yet, especially since there's been the stock problems going on. And there's a lot of people that have probably wanted one for several months, not been able to find one. And then when they finally find one, they got to pay more for it now in these areas. So that sucks. What can you
Right?
say?
Or you get those people that are like, oh, I really want to get it new, but I can't really afford it. So I'll wait. And then when it drops in price, because they inevitably do, I'll pick one up then. It's like, oh no. And Sony's like, Uno reverso. Actually, it's gone up in price.
Uno reverso.
You should have bought one when you wanted one. But yeah, this sucks. Like I can't think of a time that this has ever happened where a console has increased in price. And the real kick in the teeth, like the part that makes this look even worse, is I think I saw somewhere that Xbox said and Nintendo said like, well, we're not increasing our prices. They've come up and been like, don't worry, we're not gonna do this too. Like, really fuck Sony on this one.
Yeah, right.
So,
And the interesting part too is like Sony's saying it's due to inflation and like the manufacturing costs, right? I'm sure like there has been more costs on that end. But obviously that's the same and true for Nintendo and Xbox also. Their stuff will have also increased, but they're just choosing to eat the cost, whereas Sony is being like, well, instead of us paying more for these parts, we're just going to pass that extra cost along to our customer base, which I think is like, you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Like, eat the cost, man. Like, we're just regular people trying to buy your stuff, and they're just passing the buck along.
it's like the reason is inflation. It's like, oh geez, I wonder who inflation hits the most. The poor like consumers trying to buy the console, or Sony who's kicking their 30% off their sale, like not letting you buy anywhere else.
It's actually really, really, really frustrating. And the other part of this, like I actually was kind of mad about this when I thought about it, because like clearly the US is the biggest market for entertainment industry stuff, like almost across the board in like games, movies, everything, right? And it's not a coincidence that the US is the one major market listed in this that doesn't have the price increase. So not only is Sony kicking us all in the teeth in other countries like with this increase, but it's almost like so obvious that they're like, oh, we shouldn't piss off our biggest customer base in the US, so let's just shaft everyone else and like make them pay more to offset our costs, and then we'll keep everyone in the US happy for now. Like, I really don't like that. If you're really gonna do this, like, make it across the board. Don't pick your favorite and give them a break and rip everyone else off. Like, I just think I'm sour grapes over that.
Right. That is really, really strange because it's so like why not? And it's also too like if you really are bleeding money, then like bleed, you need to get it back from everybody. Why do you need to get
I
it
know.
back from only certain people?
Yeah, it's a really frustrating thing. Like, I don't know all the ins and outs. Like you say, we're not on the inside. Like, maybe there's some reason where distribution costs more in these specific countries. There's obviously a lot more countries aside from the US that aren't getting a price increase that do have these consoles as well. It's not just the US getting a break, but out of the major markets, I think it is. And it just makes no sense to me. Like, pick your favorite. I think the people that don't have a PS5, like, we're in very lucky position right now that we have it. It doesn't really affect you or I that this price is going up. But I know like a few of my friends are actively looking for a PS5. Two of the guys that I play Fortnite with right now, like, one of them just bought a PS5 like last month. And so he's super happy about this. And the other one of them who's like, oh, I've been, kind of looking around for one casually, saving my money, I'm going to buy one when the time's right. And I just talked to him the other night and he's like, well, fuck this. Like, I'm so mad about this. Like,
Yeah.
like, that's, yeah. What do you do? What do you do?
I feel like that would sour me. Like I'd almost want to not buy one just out of the principle of being like feeling ripped off about it. But at the same time, it's like I probably would because like okay, $50, whatever. I was going to spend like a few $100. What's $50 extra? But still, like it's not a good look, and it's very unfortunate that this
Yeah.
happens to be the case.
The other thing too, the other point I had to bring up on this was, I feel like this could have been news that could have been presented in a lot of a way better messaging scheme for Sony too, right? Like, they must have been planning this for a while. It wasn't like they woke up last week and were like, well, shit, like, we're not making as much profit as we thought. We should increase this price. Like, this must have been planned out for a while. Why would they not have timed this with the new PlayStation Plus tiers being like, oh, you know what? Like, oh, we're so sorry we have to increase the price. Like, inflation's a lot, but we're going to give every single person, a free 3 months of the highest tier PS Plus alongside this when they buy a new console, along with the new launch of this. Or like, why is it not like, a game, something like Sackboy's Big Adventure, like a launch title from the PS5, like, you can just generate codes for games for free if you're Sony and they cost you nothing. Like, why don't you pack something in that people aren't really buying a lot of anymore? You're not really probably making a lot of profit on a game like that, or like Miles Morales that came out when the PS5 launched. So you could easily include like a code for that or something, just something to offset it. But they're just like, nope, it costs more now. You get nothing. Fuck you. Like, it's kind of sad. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you look at across the road at Xbox, and they're like, hey, you want to play Game Pass? Give us $1 and you can play for 3 months. Like, and it's just such a stark contrast in terms of how much they're playing nice with their customers, I guess. It's like Sony just knows they have the games, they have this shit. Like, everyone wants a PS5, and so they're just like, let's take advantage of it,
Yeah, Sony's PR has kind of been questionable lately, right? It's like you see stuff like this, and it's like, okay, they're the ones being a little bit like, finicky about where their stuff gets sold and being a little bit protective of their brands. And okay, now they're the only ones increasing prices, and like, they're the ones that are being kind of weird about crossplay. And it's like, dude, just play nice. Like, I'm sure you'll
Yeah.
make the money back. People love PlayStation. You make good games. Like, that is hopefully where your money's coming from, right? But
Well, it
I don't
is. I
know.
mean, that is,
Maybe
but
they're suffering. Maybe like you pull the trench coat back on Sony and it's just like they're just like covered in scars and bleeding and they're like famished and like the high ups eat one meal a day because they can't afford it anymore.
Jim Ryan's over there like cracking a box of KD for dinner every night.
Right? Like maybe that's happening. We don't know about it. Maybe this will like get their families back on their feet, but it doesn't seem like that's the case.
This is classic video game industry, like whoever's
Yeah.
like the market leader, eventually they just get in their head and then the other one takes over, like between Xbox and PlayStation. It's like when the 360 and the
Mhm.
PS3 first came out. The 360 was so popular, they did the same thing. And then with the Xbox One, they started being like, now you have to buy the pack-in camera shit that no one wants, and it costs
Yeah.
and it's $100 more expensive than the PS4. And then everyone bought a PS4, and now it's flipping back over to PlayStation's now the one, shitty consumer moves
Yeah,
again. Like,
but then instead of doing, like, consumer-friendly things, they're like, "Well, we'll just buy this game studio then, fuck you. If you wanna play, like, Destiny, you better come
yeah.
to PlayStation," or
Well,
whatever.
that's never going to be exclusive,
Yeah.
but
Well,
I know
not
what you mean.
Destiny, but
I mean,
they
I mean,
bought
I
Bungie
mean,
and they
Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, which is bigger than
Yeah,
Bungie. So I mean,
that's true.
that's very,
That's true. But I just
yeah,
mean, like, that's where they're warring it out now is, like,
yeah.
what company can we acquire before we acquire you? Like, one of them's just gonna eat Nintendo at one point, and then the world's gonna explode.
Oh, well, did you see the rumor yesterday? Apparently, there was rumors going around that Amazon was buying EA.
Oh
I don't
my
know if you saw
god,
that. That would be huge. Apparently, it was
that's
false,
huge.
but like, man, I wonder if something like that's going to happen in the future because like, there's so much consolidation, right?
I really don't want Amazon to get involved,
I
though.
know, because Amazon doesn't know shit about games. They're Luna. Like, who plays Luna? Come on. Like, I don't know. We're off topic now. I don't know. I hope this gets turned around. Like, I hope there's some universe where, a month from now they're like, well, the conditions are getting better. We found a way to manufacture these cheaper. Like, we're bringing the price back down or
Mhm.
something. But I don't know. Like, conversely, we might see 6 months from now, what if Xbox and PlayStation are like, hey, we're increasing our prices too because the or Xbox and Nintendo. I mean, like, you never know. It could go the other way too. But I don't know. I don't think this is a good look at the moment for PlayStation. Um, yeah, and so I guess we'll talk about our next story, which is PlayStation adjacent as well. Actually, Death Stranding is coming to PC Game Pass, which is a consumer-friendly move on a PlayStation exclusive, which is nice. Although the caveat here, I think, is that although it's weird that a PlayStation exclusive game is coming to Game Pass, the difference is on PC, it's only coming to Game Pass PC, not console. And the difference here is that on PC, Death Stranding is published by 505 Games and not by PlayStation Studios. So I think there's like a weird clause in there where because the publisher is different, they can get away with it. But it's weird to see a game like this coming to Game Pass.
Yeah, it is strange because like they've been putting stuff over on Steam, which has been awesome. Like it is, the conversation's now not like, ooh, are they gonna put more stuff? It's what's the next game coming because it's been like a trend. But to see one show up on Game Pass is very strange. And it's kind of fitting it's the weirdo game, like the weirdo emo game Death Stranding that's going. But I mean it's cool and like, maybe that's a I wonder how much say Sony had in it. Like, I don't understand how this other publisher has like come into it or like gotten the rights
Well,
to Death
I think it's
Stranding.
because Death Stranding was not developed, like Kojima's studio is not owned by
Yeah,
PlayStation. He
they
just
are
had a
not. No.
publishing deal on the console. So I guess Kojima was like, "Hey,
Mhm.
we're making a deal only to publish on consoles with PlayStation," knowing that with PC they were going to go with 505. So
Right.
that's
Okay.
probably
So
how it happened.
you're right. So he probably had a little loophole. This doesn't have anything to do with Sony and
Hmm.
is not like a precedent that more PlayStation games will come to Xbox.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, the MLB the Show
Mhm.
did, but that's also because I think that one's in a different case too, because the MLB is like a separate entity outside of gaming that just licenses out like their property to
Right.
whatever studio it is, right? And they probably just looked at it and were like, "Hey, why would we not want to be on everything?" And so they changed it.
Mhm.
But I think those are like two separate cases than the other studios, which are Sony owned differently. So yeah, crazy stuff. Anyway, if it came to Game Pass on console, that would be something else too, because that would be like a whole like you're actually playing it on your Xbox. Then it's not like you play it on your PC. Like no one knows if you booted it from Steam or Epic or where you got it. But if it was like on your Xbox itself, that would be something crazy.
Yeah, the PC is kind of like that neutral ground where it's like, okay, it's like that like area you're having a war and it's like the area in the middle where it's like, hey, if you go there, it's safe, no one's allowed to hurt you.
Right, the
Like,
medics are here.
like
Like
yeah, you gotta like check your weapons at the door. But like, yeah, going to Xbox is like that is not okay.
it's interesting.
But it's at least a good start, and it would be cool to see like publishers be able to make those deals where they're not like limited. Like, okay, sure, it's like kind of like similar like timed exclusives and stuff, right? Where it's like we
Yeah.
make that deal with the company, like okay, it's only going to be available on PlayStation for the first 6 months, and then it's coming everywhere. So this is like kind of I guess sort of in that vein of like, okay, we're only on your console, but like I'm gonna also release it here on PC, and like why not Game Pass? I don't care. They just want it, they just want to get their game out to as many people as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that's exactly what happened too. Like, so this has probably been planned from the start, and Sony was just like, "Hey, you know what? How much money can we give you to keep it off of Game Pass for X amount of time to have the market, associate this game and Kojima with PlayStation?" But it's interesting now that Kojima's like since before this was announced, I think a couple months ago, right? He was like seen to be working with Xbox on his new project and all that. So it's I wouldn't be surprised like from now on if all of his stuff is everywhere and not just PlayStation wise. But we'll see.
Well, I think as like an independent developer, I feel like that is your goal, right? Like you end up making deals with companies for exclusivity because they pay you lots of money. But I think as an independent developer, you want to like vomit it out to the world as in as large a radius as possible because that's how you get the most amount of people playing it, which is ultimately
Hmm.
your goal.
Well, especially someone like Kojima, right? Like everyone knows his name and people will buy his games. If you're a smaller developer that no one really knows who you are, maybe you would take the cash from one of the
Mhm.
big systems and be like, well, we're not 100% sure how our game's going to sell. So let's take this million, however many million from Xbox or PlayStation and
Mhm.
get the exclusivity deal. But Kojima could release like Tetris again and people would buy it for $50 a pop without asking any questions. So for him it probably does make sense to be everywhere. um,
Mhm.
I guess. Whew, okay, wow, that was crazy. Um, so let's get into the second half of the show, which is going to be recapping opening night live, of course, the Jeff Keighley show from Gamescom. There was a lot of stuff announced in this showcase. It was like 41 different games, I think you'd said. You counted them right, along with some other awards and other things mentioned. So we're not going to recap everything. I'm sure people listening have probably either watched it or read a recap themselves. So we're just going to go through and point out the stuff that matters to us. Starting off with, again, PlayStation news here, as well as Gamescom, introducing the DualSense Edge wireless controller. So PlayStation is finally releasing their own sort of pro controller. It looks very similar to the regular DualSense, aside from having the face buttons are black as well as the touchpad. So it's got a little bit more of like, the evening out of the black and white color scheme, I guess. And then it also has, customizable controls. You can remap some of the buttons. You can switch off some of the thumbsticks. You can save different profiles, I guess. So if you like to have different calibrations for different games or users, you can do that. There's also some back like bumper panels that I know people really like to have those for certain things. Just an upgraded sort of controller. I don't think they listed a price yet, which I mean
I
it's
think they
gonna be a lot. It's gonna be probably what 150,
I
175
mean,
bucks.
the regular like DualSense is already expensive, so like an additional customizable one, like it's cool, but yeah, I imagine it's gonna be pretty pricey.
Yeah. So how do you feel about this? Do you like it? Do you see yourself ever getting one? Like, are you into pro controllers? What do you think?
I think it's cool. I probably won't. Like, I'm just not the type that would use a lot of the customizable features. Like, I think I like the base DualSense so much. I don't see that I like personally have a use for it, but I think it seems like a really cool controller, and I could see a lot of people really liking it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I don't see why I need those other buttons. Like, I don't have a problem. It's very rare that I'm playing a game and I'm like, oh, if only I had a button on the back of my controller to map this to, Like, I feel like we've
Yeah.
gotten really far. Like, the industry has come really far in terms of like 9 times out of 10 when you're playing a game, it's going to have exactly the controls you think it should have. Occasionally, there's one where you're like, oh, I wish they could remap something. But in general, I feel like most games just kind of work with the controllers we have now. I feel like this is more of like a really hardcore enthusiast thing, or like if you're into a really competitive game where you just play Overwatch or like a fighting game really competitively and you want that extra little customizability to get the advantage. I think that's the market for something like this. But I don't know. That being said, like if I was to buy another DualSense, I feel like part of me is curious of like how much better is this thing, and so I'm not gonna rule out like ever getting one. But I can't say I'm like rushing to the door to go buy another controller, because they're so expensive.
Do like about this is I like the idea of like some of this stuff just being standard, like this almost being like a prototype, and it'd be nice for this stuff to be standard, like just in the future, and not necessarily like all like the additional bells and whistles. Like I don't want the back buttons. If anything, I feel like those might get in the way. But what I do really like about it is how like it can come apart so easily. Like they're saying like you can take the sticks out and like adjust and put new sticks in. But that would just be a nice thing for, companies to look into in the future, because that's often the thing that breaks on a controller is the sticks, and like you get like the Joy-Con drift and like was such a big issue and stuff like that. And so what I like almost the most from this controller is just like can that always be a like removable feature, because then instead of buying a new controller, you could just buy like replacement sticks if your controller was to break in that way.
Right. That's a really good point. I hope that we can kind of get there, but I don't see that being included in the regular
No.
one. Like it's a premium feature right now. That's what they're saying. For me, and I said this on Twitter the other day, but it's just like all I want about controllers for me is I want to be able to customize them like Xbox Design Labs. That's
Yeah.
the coolest thing. Like, next time I buy an Xbox controller, why would I buy a plain one when I could customize my own? The DualSense has so much room for like, the two-tone colors. Like, how do you want to lay it out? I would love to be able to make my own creation and like get a custom controller officially from Sony, because I don't like going through a lot of the third-party kind of sites like that. Like that's what I want, not so much like the pro options. But I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever see that. They seem very much like, we like you to have these colors we release, and that's it. So
Yeah, they got a code, and that's unfortunate.
Anyway,
But I
Oh, go ahead. What were you gonna
Oh
say?
no, I was gonna say I completely agree. Like that's what would interest me is more
Yeah,
like of the fashion controller
totally.
than the like performance controller.
Totally. Anyway, we're not just talking about the PlayStation controller here. Of course, this was opening night live, and there was like I said, a shitload of stuff announced. So we're just gonna take turns, I think, going through. And it's an interesting twist. We are now, every time there's a showcase of sorts, we are going to give out a couple awards each for our winner of Game of the Show, which is something that we got most excited about, or we're most hyped for the announcement. And we're also going to give out a Loser of the Show award, which is a game that we just either think didn't look as great as we were hoping, or we're worried about for whatever reason. So maybe we should start off just giving our winner and loser of the show, and then go from there. Hey,
Okay, winners first, because
winners
that's
first.
a little more exciting.
Okay.
This was a tough one for me. I'm really between two things. And I think they both look equally good, but one of them is funnier. And so I think I have to give it to the one that's funny as fuck, and that is gonna be Lies of P.
Yes.
We'd heard rumor of this game before. It wasn't like the first time we'd ever seen it. But like I remember when I heard about this game, and I thought it was I thought it was a joke, and it turns out it's not. It's a real game. So it's basically like go look at this trailer. It's wild. It's
It looks like
basically like
Bloodborne. It looks
it's the
exactly like
Bloodborne.
Bloodborne.
Yeah, it is. It is Bloodborne 2, but it's based off of Pinocchio, which is like it's so incredibly random. And like it's really like stylized in that gothic Bloodborne kind of way, almost a little bit steampunky in some aspects. And so like I think it's just very loosely based off of Pinocchio. Like maybe it's drawing a little bit from like the original story. Like you would never like there's not a wooden puppet boy. Like you wouldn't necessarily like recognize it as Pinocchio, but it does have that branding. And it just looks so fucking good. Like it looks like a cross between Bloodborne, but you've got like a Sekiro arm that you can like change attachments to. It almost looks a little like BioShocky as well in terms of setting, with that kind of like steampunky future. And like it just looks so good. It's coming to Game Pass day one. Like I'm so incredibly excited for like Pinocchio Souls.
You know what? I've never met a single person in my life that's like, holy shit, I'm a huge Pinocchio fan. I can't wait to play this. Like, I don't think there's anyone out there that cares about Pinocchio, but like you say, like you would never know this was Pinocchio. The thing I'm most fascinated about this game to find out is the name is Lies of P, right? And do you remember what happens to Pinocchio when he tells a lie?
Right, his nose
His
grows.
nose grows. So like,
right?
is his nose going to be growing in this game? Like, why are they're playing into the lies of P, right? Like something's got to happen if he tells a lie. Maybe you get weaker if you tell a lie. Who knows? It's like your power level goes down and you hurt yourself in the game or something.
Yeah. So the NPCs ask you like very difficult moral questions. They're like, "Oh, do I look fat in this dress?" And you're like, No, but god damn it. Like those
And then
3
the boss
levels.
fights harder.
Yeah.
That game did
There's
look
just
really good though.
endless potential in Lies of P is what we're
Yeah,
saying.
it looked really good. Well, my winner of the show was Where Winds Meet from Everstone Games.
Yes! Yes, that was
Um,
my other one I was debating between.
yeah,
Yay.
I was really blown away by that, and we've talked about,
Yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima is such an easy comparison
Yeah.
when you look at sort of the gameplay of this game and what they're going for, and even the environments are very similar looking. Although this game takes place in the Ten Kingdoms era of Chinese history, not in Japan, but it is like a very similar aesthetic to Tsushima, and so it really drew me in on the trailer. And there's a few things about this game that are quite different though. Like there is a scene. The start of the trailer is Tsushima like, but then later on they're sort of running on water, and there's some more kind of mythical beasts that they're fighting, and some of the attacks are a little bit less grounded. Like Jin, for the most part, in the multiplayer, it gets a little bit more supernatural, but in the base game, Tsushima is fairly grounded in terms of like what an actual human could do and their skill set. Whereas this is more a little bit fantastical, and you're doing some moves that seem to be, you know, video gamey. Like you couldn't actually do it in real life. So I'm really interested in that. And there's some really interesting scenes of like giant stone pillars coming down from the sky in this sort of boss arena, and it just looks really fascinating. And I'm also interested from the sense that it's from a new publisher I had not heard of called Everstone Games, and it's a Chinese developer. And we just don't get a lot of Chinese games released in North America. We're always talking about North American games, or there's sometimes games from Europe, and then there's obviously Japan, which is the other big sort of country where games come out of. And there's games from everywhere, of course, but those are sort of the heavy hitters. And so seeing a high quality game like this, or something that looks high quality from, not one of the generic game countries, is interesting to me. Although looking into this a little bit further, I must say I'm a little bit lower on it than I was originally watching it. Still my winner of the show, but I looked up and there was a quote here from a page on the game saying the game is going to include various sandbox features, including letting players take on a role such as a doctor or a merchant. That sounds cool. But Kate, as well as constructing their own buildings in the world. Fuck. Base building.
No, get out of your base
So
building.
I'm gonna hold a little bit of judgment until we see exactly how much base building there is and what it ends up looking like. But I don't know, the ability to become a doctor or a merchant or something, that sounds kind of cool. So maybe that'll balance it out. And as long as it's fun to play, and the graphics end up being as cool as they are, the world is cool. I think this is one to watch.
So validated in choosing Liza P now. But yeah, this game looks cool. Like this immediately stuck out to me as well as the second one that I was like, I'm gonna keep an eye on. It looks really cool. It looks like a way more like fantasy, like mythological, hyped up version of Tsushima kind of style game. But I will say too, like it was just a good trailer. Like I miss trailers like this. We get so many now that are just so action packed, and they get like a rock song, and then it's like cinematic, like just fight to music, and it's so like they're so bland a lot of the time. And this is a fucking trailer. Like I say look it up even if you're not really like interested in that style of game, because it sets the tone so nicely with some like quieter scenes, and you really get a look of like almost like it sets up some stakes. And it's like it's the ultimate like step one, drink tea, step two, kill God. Because the second half of the trailer just goes absolutely nuts with some like crazy gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
But it was exciting because you have that slow opening where it kind of draws you in, and it asks, you start to have some questions, and then it gets into the action. And it isn't just like here's generic rock song that guys are shooting guns to. And like it was just this is a nice trailer, and it does look like a good game, and maybe we can get around the base building.
Hope it's optional.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kate, what's your loser? What was your loser of the show?
My loser of the show was Park Beyond. We've seen this game before, and I will admit that this trailer was better than the first trailer we saw of them. But I just can't care at all about these like people sitting in some like business meeting about like building a park, and like just admit that your game is like a spin on Roller Coaster Tycoon, and like you can make a theme park. Like that's the whole fucking game. But they always have these like really long trailers about like bad jokes in a business meeting about how should we build this theme park, and they're
Yeah, we're
like,
so silly.
they were so silly, and they've got like rulers and they're measuring stuff, and it's like just it's a theme park building game. We know what it is. Like, just hate
Yeah,
Park
just
Beyond.
skip it.
Zoo Tycoon was always better than Roller Coaster Tycoon. We all know
Amen.
this.
It's obvious. It's so clear.
And I just can't care about Park Beyond anymore.
You know what? I don't care about Park Beyond either, but I don't think it makes me so pissed off as you. So that's funny.
Maybe I'm being a little harsh, but
Yeah.
that I think if I had to pick a loser, that was the one.
To be fair, I don't think there may not have been like a ton of really amazing things in this show, but I don't think there was a lot of like
Yeah.
loser games either.
Yeah,
For
like
the most
I
part.
went over my list. Like it wasn't like I knew that was loser. I went over my list and I had to think about it. So it wasn't like it was a relatively consistent quality show
Yeah,
overall.
I think so too.
Mhm.
Okay, so my loser was the first game we saw in the showcase, I believe. It was called Everywhere.
Oh
From
god.
Build a Rocket Boy. It's called Build a Rocket Boy. And
Yeah.
that game's a fucking loser. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Because it has NFTs.
Oh yeah.
That's
Oh,
it.
does it?
It has
Is that
NFTs.
confirmed?
You know what? Okay,
Okay.
first of all, I thought it was a bit suspicious because the logo of that game looks like one of those NFT sort of logos
Yeah, it
that you see
does.
online. And the trailer itself, and this is the reason it's the loser. The trailer to me was actually like, it was very short, like not a lot really happened, but there was like a lot of clips of different things. There was like people racing, and then they were shooting, and then they were in space, and then they were driving, and then there's just a lot going on, and it looked kind of cool. You're like, what is this? And then nothing really happens in the trailer, and then it goes on to be revealed after the show that it's an NFT game, and you're just basically like gonna have to buy NFTs to play it and make your car a different color, and like, fuck you. Take these shit out of our games and like get it out. No one wants
Mm.
to have NFTs in games at this point, the way they're being used at the moment. And shame on Jeff for allowing this to be put in his showcase. So that's my
Dude,
loser of the show.
that's rough. I didn't know that was the case. Like, I remember looking at this trailer and I thought it was very confusing because it was really not clear what this game was. Like, at first, it seemed like it was
Exactly.
going to be like almost like a Fortnite kind of thing. And then it was like, okay, maybe it's like an open world game. And then it was like, no, it's a game creation engine. It was like, okay. And so it was just really confusing. And the guy came out and talked about it, and he didn't really clarify anything. And so I just wrote it off in my head as like one of those like games that like is never gonna come out because
Mm-hmm.
it's just some like software that keeps getting like
Yeah.
iterated on. And so I just wrote it off and like didn't even think about it any more than that. But like if they've confirmed NFTs and stuff, like yeah, fuck that. I hope nobody plays
Yeah,
this.
and it's
So dumb.
isn't it weird how although they want you to think NFTs are great, every time you see anything about them, it's like you're like you said, it's all vague. No one knows what the game's about. The guy doesn't really tell you much, and it's because they want to get you
Yeah.
sucked in with nice visuals and like get you sucked into the last minute
Yeah.
until you don't realize it's NFTs, and then
Well, the
you're
other
excited
thing
for
too is
something like
like
that.
there are some good games out there. Like something like Dreams is like there are like stuff like that. Like creation content is amazing. Like there's so many good places for that. You don't need to go to like shitty NFT version.
Yeah, well, these
That's
guys trying it, so let's good luck to you, but
Mhm.
I hope your game fails. And I don't say that about
Dude,
many things.
God, I was harsh on Roller Coaster World. Damn.
Look, these NFTs are ruining the planet, man. So what can I say? All right, let's rapid fire our way through some other games that we liked here, Kate. What do you want to bring up next?
Well, the next one's just interesting to me. Is actually the second game, just because it was like so high then so low, because it's Dune Awakening, and I
Mm.
saw it and I was like, oh, that's so cool. They're making a Dune game, and like I haven't read Dune yet, but it's been heavy on my list.
I've got it on my Kindle right now. I haven't started it
Yeah,
myself.
I bought the book a while back and I've been intending to read it because it's like a really famous big series. And so I've been into that and it just got that movie coming out. I'm like, "Oh, that's great. Dune's having a glow up. Like, I know it's a really narrative heavy game. It'd be cool like, get to explore some of that world." And then it was like open world survival MMO and I was like, "Oh, everybody just cried." That
Yeah,
sucks.
I don't know though. Like
Um
people like those genres, but yeah, for
yeah,
me, it
that's
definitely would be
true.
less exciting because of that.
I just think like yeah, I just don't think that's like what it seemed like it was gonna be at first, and so it was kind of a like
Mm.
like really high then really low on that trailer for me.
Right,
But it's
right.
just cool that we're seeing more book stuff because books are great and you should go read some books.
I agree. There was also that Brandon Sanderson game that was announced here too, and that's
Oh
another
my
one about a
god,
book.
that one was so weird. Can we talk about that now?
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah. Go ahead.
holy shit. What was that one called? Sanderson. Okay, so it's Moonbreaker. So this is the weirdest game of the trailer because it's the guys who made Subnautica, which is
Yeah.
that like underwater exploration game. So then they made Moonbreaker, and it's like a miniature game. So like you're playing like kind of like a turn-based strategy game, but your characters and like your units are like actual miniatures. So they have like a little stand they're on, and like they all have different moves and whatever. It kind of looks like a weird mobile game in like terms of its art style. Like I didn't
Yeah, yeah.
really love it. But what is cool about it is like you can paint the minis like as if like you had them in real life. So it is really like kind of a cute, faithful miniature game. But then they're like, and Brandon Sanderson is here, and we saw George R. R. Martin getting in on Elden Ring, so we've hired Brandon Sanderson, and he's writing the story and the world for Moonbreaker. But then in the trailer, there was literally
Yeah,
nothing
no
about the
story at
world and
all.
the story that they like brought him out and had Brandon Sanderson talking about it. Like he's a big deal, he's a cool guy, he's a great author. But then the trailer had literally nothing, and it was just like mini shooting rockets and like painting them, and it's like, dude, do you even have a story? Like, this is not really the kind of game that's like
Yeah.
a huge narrative thing.
Well,
Like,
similar to Park Beyond, right? Like this is just a strategy game you're kind of doing. I think this game actually looked pretty cool. Like the concept of playing with
yeah,
miniatures and they all have their different units. It kind of gave me Atlas Reactor vibes. I know it's not
it did.
the
It kind
same
of did.
deal, but the game
Yeah,
looked kind of like that. And I like those like turn-based strategy kind of like on just like Final Fantasy Tactics, right? Similar to that kind of game.
yeah,
It looked cool. Like I don't think it's blown me away. I don't know how interested I am in painting minis, but it looks interesting. Like it could have been a
yeah.
lot worse.
The game looks neat. It's just one of those like it looks like it's gonna be like a free to play, and you start out with like a couple
Yeah.
figurines, and then you can like keep buying more minis. But what's weird about that to me is like games like that, like people don't like usually like the lore is not told to you while you're playing. It's usually like click on that mini and then they'll have like a bio you can read. And if you read all the bios of all the things, you get like an inkling of the story. And it's games like that have it all the time. Like, you know, like League of Legends has like a massive lore and like all these different like continents and cultures and countries, and the characters all come from places and have like interactions with each other. And it's like you would literally never know that unless you stopped and read everything about it. And like it's pretty well written, but like you don't fucking know who any of these characters are aside from like that's the scary clown guy and that guy's an assassin and she's a princess, and like it's just so weird to me like that is the kind of game that would hire someone who's like as accredited as Sanderson, because it's like 2% of your player base is gonna read this stuff.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Like it is a weird choice. And like for Elden Ring hiring George R. R. Martin, like that makes a lot more sense than that translates a lot better into that world than this translates into
Yes.
hiring another author to help with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you,
exactly.
but yeah, interesting game.
Yeah.
You know what I want to bring up, speaking of interesting games, is
Mhm.
now the first game I brought up, Where Winds Meet. I want to say that's one of the best names for a game that I've heard in
Yes.
a while. Speaking of one of maybe the most questionable names for a game, even though I really am interested in this, is Dwarf Romantic. I don't exactly know what that is.
Yeah.
It sounds like German or something. Maybe you could tell me. But this game is coming to Switch, and it's already out on Steam. And apparently, it has like insanely good reviews, like some 10 out of 10 type of stuff on Steam. And this is the one that kind of looks almost like a Catan board. And the idea is you're kind of placing different hexes around on a map, and you are trying to place different biomes and areas to create ideal landscapes and like build out your world. It's a fairly small little thing. I don't think it's the type of thing that's going to cost too much. It's definitely not on a really big scale, but the art just looks so perfect for what it is. And I think it just seems like one of those relaxing things. Like when I played the game Mini Metro, like you're building out the metro lines and stuff. Like it really reminds me of that, or something like Townscaper, where you're just sort of building your little
Yeah.
island. Like I really like the idea of this. It seems like such a cozy game just to kind of play for a couple evenings and whatever. So I'm definitely gonna keep my eyes on Dorf. And I hope I get to say that word more often. If I
Dwarf.
play the game and like it, I can say Dorf a lot. So
Yeah, you can see your big dwarf.
yeah.
Yeah, that game, I'm so glad you said Mini Metro, because when I was watching that trailer, I was like, the minimalistic art style is so nice, it looks so familiar. I couldn't think of what it was, and that's exactly
Yeah, Dorf.
what I was thinking of.
Dorf
Um,
Romantic.
Dwarf romantic. Okay, I think the next game I gotta pull up is Callisto Protocol, and I would
Okay,
just
yeah,
touch
yeah.
on it briefly. Like we've seen this game before. We like I almost kind of like I don't want to see anymore. Like I've seen enough. I
It's
know it
reaching
looks
the
good.
status of being a
I know
little bit too much presentation on this.
yeah, it is potential to death loop itself real soon. Um, which is our new favorite catchphrase, for anyone who doesn't know, is like to call something a death loop game because if you remember the marketing for Deathloop, it was like at every single conference there was like 32 trailers put out before the game came out. We're like, this game looks cool, and then you just got so sick of seeing it everywhere. So that's to death loop yourself. But it looks cool. Like that gravity gauntlet seems a little powerful. Like he's shooting enemies like 6 times, they're not dead, and then he just sort of gravity pushes them in the fan, and they die immediately. So I think maybe that seems like there's going to be some like limitations to it. But they came up with a new mechanic, which is cool. We hadn't seen before, and that is the mutation mechanic. So like Dead Space is, which is where the developers have come from, and very clearly this is like a spiritual successor to Dead Space is like known for their like limb system. So you shoot the guy's like legs, then his legs will
Oh, it's
fall
so
off.
much
The
fun.
monster will start like crawling along the ground at you. And you can like shoot arms off and stuff, and you gotta like get them in the head. And so like it's such a cool mechanic, and it really adds to that like stress in the moment when you're playing a horror game. And so they've kind of one up that now with their mutation mechanic, where the enemies will like if you shoot off a limb or something, they'll start getting these like tentacles coming out, and you have to shoot the tentacles before like the tentacles mutate it into an even worse monster. And I can just imagine like sitting on the couch with friends and it's like starting to mutate. We're like, oh, get it. And the person who's playing is like, they miss a couple times. We're like, no, it's gonna mutate. And it's just like so tense and stressful. And I love it, and I'm so scared.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for
Scared and I'm
Callisto.
ready.
I'm pretty excited for this game. I know it's been shown a lot, but I feel like they tease a little bit more out of it every time we see it. Whereas with
Yeah.
Deathloop, they're just kind of showing you the same thing over and over. Whereas this, it's like, okay, now we're learning about this evolution thing, and we've learned a bit more. I just love the way they're doing the gore in this game. I don't know, like I know people don't always like gore, but for me, like I'm a bit of a gore person for like movies and games when it's done in a certain way, and this is doing it right for me too. Like I remember there's that moment in this trailer where your character is going down that water slide,
Yeah.
and like gets like cut in half, and I was like, oh my god, like holy shit, pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's nasty.
Pretty crazy. I'm excited for this one, that one for sure. It was on my list to bring up too, so that's
Mhm.
good. The other game that I wanted to bring up is the game The Finals, and this is like the shortest trailer I've ever seen for something. It's like you could blink and you could miss it. And they didn't really show anything about the game. It was more just explaining the concept. And this is the one. It's from ex Battlefield developers, is what they're saying. And it's basically like it's a battle royale, but it's like a game show. And I think that's just a really great way to couch a battle royale. And something like Battlefield to me is always a game like I've never really played it too much, but I know a lot of people that have, and they're always like, oh, it has the best mechanics. Like you can break the environments and the guns are really nice, but I've just never really played it because whenever I get into, I've been into Call of Duty in the past and like other shooters now, like I've just never really been drawn to Battlefield. But I like the idea of those developers being from that franchise, but going into a different, making something that's not Battlefield. So maybe I can have a chance to see sort of what they bring to the table in the first person shooter landscape. And then just the style of the game too, like not that we saw a lot of it obviously, but that little bit we did see, like there's all those coins that are kind of being scattered around, and the character looked cool, like it's like a cyberpunk style, and just like a game show death battle. Like the concept is interesting, so it's definitely one I've flagged for, like, next time there is a showcase, maybe next year or something, like looking out for more from this just to see what it's about.
Yeah, I think that game seems like it's a little quite a ways away, just like a
Yeah, yeah.
nice little tease that it exists, and we'll probably see more
It's a
later.
future teaser. It's a future teaser, but it looked like the concept has me kind of interested.
Yeah, absolutely. That is cool. Uh, okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this game, but I just want to shout it out as a little note I made is there's a Lords of the Fallen 2 coming out. And it was funny because I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, this is like kind of looks like a Souls game. I was like, but it's weird they're doing a generic action trailer with like a rock song. And it's funny that it's Lords of the Fallen because that was like considered like a really bad franchise and like
Yeah.
a really bad interpretation of that genre. So it's kind of funny that they just had like the most generic trailer. But I just want to shout them out because like, bro, you're setting yourself up for some failure because this is the sequel. The first game is called Lords of the Fallen. This is a sequel. And they've named it The Lords of the Fallen.
Ah, God,
No,
I
no
know.
like numerical value afterwards, like no like like tagline, no nothing, just the Lords of the Fallen. That is so confusing and so bad. And so I just want to say, like,
It's like
is
it's
like a
Street Fighter
funny
or
note.
something. Like their
Like
naming
it's
convention.
worse. It's worse
It
though. They
is.
just added the to it. Like that's is so bad. So they've just shot themselves in the foot. And I think the other game that shot themselves in the foot was Sonic Frontiers.
You think
And so
so?
I want to get your opinion on the trailer. But what I realized about 20 minutes before we were recording is that Sonic Frontiers has given themselves a release date of November 7th.
November 8th.
Oh, sorry, November. I
It's
think
the 8th. It's the 8th.
it's the 8th. Okay. Oh yeah, sorry. Frontiers. It is coming out on November 8th. Well, can you think of any other game that is coming out in November around that time?
Sure can, sure can.
On November 9th, we have Ragnarok, and I think like, oh boy, do you not want to schedule yourself the day before Ragnarok?
I know. It's a questionable decision, isn't it? Like this is
That's
actually interesting. I'm glad you brought up Sonic because
yes.
this is a game. Sonic is always a game when it comes out. It's always one that I'm like, I want this to be good. I want to like this, and I want to play it as I remember playing Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Not that that was a great game either, but it was good enough, and I had fun with it.
I still listen to Pumpkin Hill. Okay, it was
Yeah,
a good
Pumpkin Hill, Aquatic Mine.
Aquatic
Yeah.
Mine. Yeah.
But so here's the thing. I was actually pleasantly surprised with this trailer for Sonic. I don't think it's gonna be great, and I'm a little worried. Like, to me it seems like it's coming out very early compared to some of the criticism it's had from like people that have played it, and I'm worried that it's like, no, you know what, we got to meet a financial goal here, we got to put this game out, and it's going to be one of those like, it's not great and they're going to patch it retroactively, and if it doesn't sell enough they might not get all the way through the patches, so it's going to be maybe a bit of a glitchy mess. But so that's always Sonic, right? Like, that's the expectation you have to have going into it. Will I buy this game for $80 upon release the day before God of War Ragnarok? No. But will I potentially buy this game, in the new year for 40% off? Potentially. Because I actually think it looks kind of fun. Like, I like the idea of Sonic in an open world with space to run around. Whether that ends up being good or not, who knows? But like, the mechanic of running around the enemies in that circle and kind of encircling them, like, that makes good use of Sonic. Apparently the combat, I've heard some people say that have played it, like, it is more fun to play than it looks. And so I'm not going to write it off as being like crap, but I am worried that on release it's going to be crap, if that makes sense.
Possible. I kind of had like two halves to this trailer. Like I thought some of it looked pretty fun, but some of it like I just have a really big concern. So the 2D sections and like a couple of those like set pieces where they had him going like kind of like running forwards and they sort of kept changing like the environment he was running in, those all looked pretty cool. And like the
Yeah.
idea of it being overworld makes sense, and some of the boss fights, like it looked like it could be fun. But I have such a big concern where they showed him kind of just running in that open world. Like it just looks so empty and barren. And like every time we've seen the game, like just the open world sections look so incredibly boring, like as if there's nothing in them. And it almost looks like, at least, like maybe it's just poorly presented, but it looks like you just are like running between like landmarks with like nothing in between them. And so I have a concern that they haven't really like that they decided it was going to be open world but then didn't justify it and just sort of like we're like, well, what can we throw in there? And
Mm.
then it just looks
Yeah.
so bad in that aspect, but the other parts of the game look good. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it's about. Like, I don't know. I feel like we've talked about open worlds enough where, I think we're both not like completely opposed to them, but we're looking for a lot of different stuff. And like, I don't know if the barrenness of the world worries me as much, because with Sonic I'm like, well, I'm going to be probably going pretty fast. So if this is just if I'm just going through an environment, like, do I care if there's a lot of stuff to interact with? I don't really want to be stopping and like doing a bunch of different stuff. Like, I'm supposed to be burning across this desert.
Right.
But I
And
hope that when you get to the area where you need to, it's more of like a level, that those are more, filled up with activities
yeah.
and bounce pads and rails and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, yeah, like you don't want to be stopping all the time. Like you are gonna blaze through them, but I want to be blazing through them and like there's interesting stuff to see, not blaze through them
Sure.
and like there's like just a couple rocks and like
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
there's a hill in the background and
Yeah.
like you know
The
it's
funniest criticism I've seen about this game is people like to, they'll take any little nugget and like blast it to hell on some forum. And the
right.
thing about this one is like, oh, there's platforms floating in the sky and they're not attached to anything. It looks bad. And I'm just like, motherfucker, have you never played a video game before? You can like why do you care? Like, there's tons of games where things just float in the sky. Apex Legends, the map is floating in the sky. No one's like, oh, well, why is it not attached to the ground? Like, this game sucks. It's only because
I
it's Sonic and people want to bag on it.
Well, like, I think the fact that it is Sonic makes it okay. Like, if I was
Yeah,
playing Ghost of Tsushima or something really grounded, there were platforms floating in the air, I'd be like,
exactly,
"Okay, this is fucked up." But, like, this it's, like, so quintessential, like, 2D platformer, like,
exactly,
pedigree, right? So, that is
exactly.
kinda funny.
Yeah. So another game, while we're on the Sonic topic, and we'll do a couple more each. Maybe we're getting close to time
Mhm.
here. I wanted to get your opinion on what you thought of Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh, yes, a Sonic as every good Sonic and
No,
Hogwarts
like
is,
I
so
just I just think this is an interesting
yeah,
comparison, because we're saying
another
about
big
Sonic and Hogwarts Legacy was actually close to being one of my losers of the show. And this is, I know I go on a lot about whenever this game comes up, I got to bring up J.K. Rowling, and it's only because, and I'm not even bagging on it because of her. My little piece, obviously, she's transphobic and not a good person in that way and all that stuff. And but that's besides the point. I won't get into that right now. But I'm just like, the game itself. Now this is an open world game too, and this game, you would, by looking at it, it's a lot more densely packed than something like Sonic. You're going to have a lot of stuff to interact with around the school and the environments and the different places you go in the wizarding world. But to me, like, looking at this game, like, I don't know if you had the same impression, but I just thought the character models like looked really last gen, like in comparison to some of the faces of other stuff. And I'm not a graphics snob. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, this game is bad because the characters don't look good. But I wouldn't say I'm blown away to the extent where, like, you'd expect WB and, like, Harry Potter to have one of the biggest budgets possible. It's one of the biggest media franchises on the planet. It's bigger than anything else that's been shown in this showcase in terms of like the franchise and the size of it. But the faces, like, when that mount flies in at the end for like the digital pre-order
yeah,
bonus,
yeah,
like, that thing looks like it's
yeah.
like it doesn't look like it should be in the game in that state. Like, it just doesn't look good. And this is the deluxe edition pre-order bonus. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know, it looks unfinished.
I'm glad you mentioned the mount because I, watching the trailer when that mount flew in, thought to myself like, "Ooh, that doesn't look great."
Yeah.
Um,
But even the characters, their mouths look like, you can kind of see how it would be like a wireframe with like a skin over it, and their mouth is like,
yeah, like
like,
it's not that like famous PS1 Hagrid
yeah,
that like,
yeah, yeah.
it's thrown around the internet, but I agree. It is bad, and it kind of makes me laugh that you mentioned like it's such a big franchise. How does the game not look better? And it's like, well, have you seen Pokemon?
Sure, sure. But I mean,
um,
that's not
but
trying to be like this.
yeah, of course.
This is
It's
trying to
just
be like a AAA level, like,
yeah,
insane thing. Like, if they made a Pokemon game that was supposed to be like realistic graphics, and that would be a different
yeah.
argument.
I think to me this was one of the weaker trailers that the game has had. I feel like they've had better trailers in the past. Like I think there was a big one last year that showed off a lot of the like game mechanics and kind of what you do and like you get to pick one of the houses and you get to go to the common room and it showed like going into classes and it showed like the magical creatures that you can catch and I think that trailer appealed to me a lot more than this one. This one was, I think, supposed to be a bit more like story driven and like, oh, you could be a like maybe implying you could be a bad guy if you want to, and you have like some agency over some choices. But it was just it didn't appeal anywhere near as much. And I think this game is something like I want it to be good, and I feel like regardless of how it turns out, I could play this game for, like, 8 hours and just, like, explore Hogwarts and, like, go to the common rooms and just have that, like, the whimsical feeling that Harry Potter brings you of just, like, its own style of charm and, like, the nostalgia factor. But I'm just a little concerned, especially with the pre-order bonus they threw on at the end, like, there's
Hmm.
gonna just be a lot of, like, microtransactions, or like they showed some of the stuff like you can catch animals and like you can grow like herbs and stuff and plants and make and brew potions, and it just kind of seemed almost like a there was like an element of like busy work to it, and it's
Mm.
like I kind of am interested in playing the game and the story and being in the world, but and like the combat even looks like it could be fun enough, but it just seems like there's gonna be a lot of elements that just sort of like drag it down in terms of like, well, your potion is gonna take 2 more hours to brew, so you better go check on it, or
Mm.
like, would you like to buy these special ingredients in this shop? And it just seems
Yeah,
like there
right,
may
right,
be
right.
like that like elements of that kind of game in it as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. Like, for better or worse, like whether it's good or bad, it's one of the games that I think I'm the most interested in just seeing how it does, because
Mhm.
it could, like, you could tell me this game is gonna come out and be a 10 out of 10, or it could be like a 5 out of 10, and I would believe both of those probably about the same percentage chance, and I just don't know where it's gonna land.
I agree. It is really tough to tell at this point.
The one
Yeah.
thing that really interests me, and then we'll move on to the next stuff, like time wise, is just I like how this trailer was more like telling us about the dark arts and going into that, because that's one thing, at least as someone like that's read the books of Harry Potter but nothing else. Like, there's not a lot of interaction with the dark arts aside from them being presented as this is what all the bad wizards use. I'd
Mhm.
like to see that more from, like, let's learn about the dark arts. Why can't a good wizard use Crucio, or something like that? Like, I'm interested in like those sort of lore aspects of it, but so that's one thing, at least from this trailer, that I did find interesting. Yeah, anyway, two more from you, Kate. We'll do two more
Okay,
each. What do you think?
2 more each? Okay, I think the other one I gotta bring up, and it's
Rapid
not
rapid
a
fire mode,
game.
by the way.
Okay,
Rapid
rapid
fire
fire.
mode.
I don't think I wanna play this game, but Friends vs. Friends had an amazing '90s cartoon trailer, that I really appreciated.
Yeah.
Um, the game I do wanna play, I think, is Under the Waves, the new Quantic
Yes.
Dream
Yes.
game.
Yes.
It's like an undersea narrative. It seems like it's really being driven on themes of, like, loss, regret, and isolation, which works really well undersea. And it just looks good. It's a Quantic Dream game. It's gonna be good.
Yeah. I don't know if they're developing it. I think they're publishing. I don't know who
They
are they? I don't know. Thought I
no,
heard maybe it wasn't. Either way, doesn't really
they're
matter.
involved at least.
It does look
Yeah.
interesting. For me, Goat Simulator. I'm just kidding. Uh,
Oh god.
no, one for me. It's another one of these, like, oh, I'm interested, but tentatively, is the new Tales from the Borderlands. Because aside from The Walking Dead, the Tales from the Borderlands was my favorite Telltale game by quite a bit, and I think it might actually be the best one. I'm emotionally more attached to the Walking Dead one. But the reason I'm a little apprehensive is because this is not actually a Telltale developed
That's
game.
right. It's
This game is
Gearbox,
being written
right?
by Gearbox. And as much fun as I have playing Borderlands, I think the writing in Borderlands is like some of the worst in games these days, because we've moved past like dick jokes and like, pissing your
Bad
pants jokes and stuff
humor,
like that. And
yeah.
it's like, that's what I'm worried about this, because Tales from the Borderlands, the first one, was Telltale, and it was really funny. Like, games don't do humor well a lot of the time, and I laughed a lot playing the first Tales from the Borderlands. So I'd love to go back to that world, but gonna have to hold out until seeing what that writing is like, and if they can like match the level of the choose your own adventure stuff that Telltale does.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I'm gonna give you my last one, but I'm gonna tack one on Wiro Song. Looks like some like weird dark fantasy thing. They didn't show much. Looks kind of cool. Wait to see more. My last one, I feel like I really just kind of have to shout it out, is Outlast Trials.
Mm.
And they've somehow managed to mix the mental hospital with also creepy fairground aesthetic. And watching this trailer, like Outlast already was one of the scariest games I've ever played, potentially the scariest. And watching this trailer, like, I can guarantee just from this that this will be the scariest game I've ever played when it comes out. And like, I almost didn't want to tell like the group that I play games with that this game was coming out because like they didn't watch it. I watched this conference and I was like sending them games, and I considered like I paused on that send button like if I tell them it's real, I'm gonna have to play it. and so, and then of course I sent it, and we'll get it, and it'll be great. But it looks so fucking
Oh my
scary.
god. Yeah, it really, really does. It looks pretty
It
terrifying.
really does.
My last one, I'm gonna kind of go out of left field here and bring up Moving Out 2. Because
Did you play the original?
no, but it wasn't good. I played like
It was so hard.
I know. I played the original a little bit, like there was a demo or something, and I found like, I really loved Overcooked and like we
Yeah.
had a ton of fun playing that, and I really wanted Moving Out to be that, but for moving. But Moving Out,
Mhm.
the first one was, I found it a little bit too much like, oh, the silly physics are like taking over. And I can't say that I love the humor in this. Like they made a fart joke like 3 seconds in, and I don't
Mhm.
really love that aspect. But if the controls are tighter and it is like, bring your friends over and sit on the couch and try and move stuff out of a house, and like the controls feel nice and it's kind of funny, like I would be really down for something like that. And so I hope that's what this is and not just kind of like more of the same one. But yeah, I think it looked better than the first one, to say that at least. Wow, yeah. There's a lot more stuff we didn't get to talk about though, like, Goat Simulator 3, like I mentioned. Obviously, big one for people out there. And there's like, Genshin Impact, Age of Empires 4 was shown. Like that's a huge franchise. There was a Mini Cooper with
Repeat
Pokemon themes.
on Dead Island 2 is
Dead
real
Island
after
2.
being announced like 2013 or something
Oh my
outrageous.
god. I'm so worried for that game. I don't know a game that's been announced like that long back and then actually comes out and is good. It's like Duke Nukem Forever.
Oh my god, and that was so bad. This was a good trailer though, I will say. It was a really good trailer, but yeah,
Totally.
it's just it's
Totally.
development hell to a new extreme.
Yeah. Wow. Anyway, let's close the show out with our little fun ending closing news story, as we always do. And this one was Nintendo teaming up with Baskin Robbins to make a Splatoon inkable ice cream. What I didn't know was, I guess a few months ago when that new Kirby game came out, Nintendo partnered with Cold Stone Ice Cream to do Kirby promotional ice cream in the US. And then this time for Splatoon 3, Nintendo's partnering with, I forget which company it is, but there's some ice cream in Japan that's going to be Splatoon themed that you can get to when the game comes out. And it is a really cool idea. Like you get your little ice cream cup, you have like the little ink pouches that you put on there and you like ink your ice cream. The whole thing is just, say what you want about Splatoon and whatever, if you give or take it, whatever, but the aesthetic of Splatoon and the vibe of like, its graphics and it's all the colors that pop out and the character designs. Like I love Splatoon for that. And this ice cream, like if I lived in Japan, I would be all about it.
Absolutely. And it says there's 8 flavors. The article doesn't tell all of them, which is kind of a shame, but it does give a few. They said there's grape, lemon, and then like squid soda or something. I don't know what necessarily that's supposed to be. But if you are going to eat one of these, what flavor of Splatoon cream would you like?
Well, there's the picture of the 3 there on the article, right?
Yeah.
NintendoLife.com if you want to join in. There's the one on the left looks kind of like it's green and white. It's got red and green sort of sprinkles. I'm assuming that might be like minty or something like that. The one in the middle, it's blue and yellow and green.
Like blue lemonade, I think.
Lemonade, yeah, kind of like that. And then the last one is lemon, I guess, or strawberry jelly, or like white and red. I'd probably go for the first one if it's mint. It looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but also there's a cake with like the little color, like the characters on there. It just looks so cool, man. Splatoon is awesome. I really want Splatoon 3 to be good because I loved Splatoon 2, but the problem with that game, no good. The single player wasn't for me, and then it's like, well, the multiplayer is only good when there's people playing, and then when the game dies off, you play against only the people that are professionals from Japan.
Like we always say, need some couch co-op.
Needs couch co-op.
Needs couch co-op. You need to just be able to grab a buddy, grab some ice cream, sit on your couch with a Joy-Con in one hand and like an ice cream cone in the other.
It's the beauty of the Switch. You can just play with one Joy-Con while you hold your ice cream. That's the whole reason they designed it like that.
It is so perfect. Come on.
Wow. All right, everybody. Well, that's going to close the show out for us today. Thank you for joining us as always. Of course, we would love to hear from you at our email address, circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com. If you want to tell us what you liked most from opening night live, tell us what your favorite announcements were. What did you think of Jeff Keighley's stage? What did you think of Jeff Keighley's stage, Kate? We didn't talk about this.
Oh yeah, it was so nice having it back live again. Like the atmosphere is just totally different. Jeff was beaming. I thought it was just a great stage and performance area.
I agree. You forget how much different it is with a crowd in person,
Yeah.
even if you're not there. Like it something about the
Mhm.
vibe of people cheering and stuff. It just isn't really matched by the sterile sort of just a camera in a room, Jeff by himself kind of thing. And that goes for everything too. But yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, write in. Let us know what you thought, and let us know which color of Splatoon ice cream you'd buy as well, because that's obviously very vital information. Uh, so we'll wait for those emails, and we'll see you all again next week for our special edition of the regular podcast, where we're going to hear all about Kate beating Elden Ring. So yeah, look forward to that one. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.